All right, 9.6, last section for this chapter, has been again filled with process-based topics. This is another one to wrap up the chapter. Be warned, again, this formula is expected of you for the rest of your math careers, and it's expected that you have the formula memorized. So let's get started in building our skills for the day. The most important part of this, which is new to you, is finding b squared minus 4ac. Now, this seems very silly that we should have to talk about evaluating a number when we've been evaluating since chapter 1, but the fact is some of you do not follow directions, which means you're going to evaluate incorrectly because you have not learned the main direction I tell you, which is to use parentheses. So let me read and see, because again, I made this last year, but let's see if I'm pretty consistent. This skill is most important because it's the most overlooked skill. That is true. Most of the errors in this portion of the work are due to stubbornness. Consider that people who calculate incorrectly simply forget to use parentheses. Even though I've been saying all year to use parentheses, even though in your Math XL, when I make you show your work, if you don't put parentheses, it's wrong. Use parentheses, but we'll see. Now consider I've been telling you, again, to use parentheses since September. All you have to do to answer this is simply substitute appropriately. B is negative 6 squared minus 4 parentheses negative 2 parentheses 12. So if you write it that way, that's good. But you also have to type it that way. You have to type parentheses negative 6 close squared minus 4 parentheses negative 2 close 12 close. And it needs to look exactly like it does on paper. That will give you the right answer. And I'll show you what is the wrong answer, which is people who like to do the negative 6 squared without parentheses and then use times and all this stuff. And that's great. The times doesn't even really throw you off. The fact is, if you don't use parentheses, though, that negative 6 throws off your answer. So please, don't be this person still, even though I've been saying to use parentheses for months. Just go ahead and transfer over so you can get it right, because again, that is the proper mathematical way to do things in terms of evaluating, and especially with calculators. Same thing here. B squared minus 4ac. B is negative 6 squared minus 4 parentheses 5 parentheses negative 1. I thought I messed up on the other one. And so again, type it in exactly the way you would write it. Parentheses b squared minus 4 open 5 close open negative 1 close, which is 56. So that's it. Now here's the thing you do need to know. You have to memorize this formula. Honestly, as long as you memorize that formula, you pretty much have the quadratic formula down. But the only new information for the quadratic formula is b squared minus 4ac. So write that down somewhere. Make sure you start to try to memorize that, because you need that to be known. That's something you have to know for the rest of your math career. As long as you take a math class, they expect that you know that formula. Just again, remember to use parentheses and learn to memorize that portion of the formula. In time, it will be an automatic step for you. Another part is evaluating the 3 parts, but I did actually introduce this to you in 6.1 or 9, whatever chapter we're on, point 1, where I gave you this and said you want to make sure that you don't type it in this way, which is what some people do. Negative 2 minus square root 83 out divided by negative 4. Because your calculator does the order of operations, I'll convert that into a decimal for you, which is 0.27. But your calculator does the order of operations, which means it actually divides first instead of adding first. That what you should be doing, again, that was 0.27, is putting negative 2 minus square root 83 equals, to get that frozen, and then divide by negative 4, which gives you 2.7. Again, there's a difference. That other one was 0.27, which was wrong, but you should have actually gotten 2.7. So, and I think it goes to the nearest tenth, but again, just read the directions on that, and if it messes or adjust to the answer. Once the answer tells you, you know what it rounds to, but that's pretty much all you have to do. So again, you've seen this, which means it shouldn't be something that's throwing you off. None of this actually should be anything throwing you off as long as you've practiced. So again, you'll do 5 plus root 91. Don't forget to hit equals first, and then divided by whatever is on the bottom, which after you convert it using that double arrow down here, you end up with negative 2.4. But that's it. Again, this is a skill we've covered. All you have to do is make sure you've practiced it, and you should be okay. 9 minus square root 21 equals, then divided by negative 8 equals, convert, oops, convert. Answer, convert, which is negative 0.5, negative 0.6. So again, that part is the ending. So I showed you kind of like the beginning and the ending. And at this point, you've seen everything you need to do it. Remember that your calculator will always give you the correct answer, but you must type it in. You must type in the correct program or problem. Otherwise, it is going to be wrong. So now that we have the general skills, let's talk about the quadratic formula, which this is the quadratic formula. The reason I haven't really covered the quadratic formula in terms of starting is because the only thing new to you is the b squared minus 4ac. Remember the key x that I told you to memorize by writing all the time. Negative b, 2a. It's not hard. It's three parts to the quadratic formula. There's the negative b, there's a 2a, and there's the b squared minus 4ac. The rest of it comes with muscle memory, but the only part you have not seen is the b squared minus 4ac, which means it should be something you can definitely do. So again, look carefully. We should notice negative b over 2a comes from 9.2. We should also notice that this is just placed under the radical. The third piece again is a plus or minus symbol, which just means add and subtract. It means two different numbers. So if you were simplifying plus or minus 6, it would be 6 and negative 6. If you were simplifying plus or minus square root of 19, it'd be square root 19 and negative square root 19. That's what plus or minus means. It just means there's two different numbers combined into one. The quadratic formula was created because you cannot solve every problem by factoring. And even though completing the square is also a method, you can't solve everything by completing the square either. It represents the last strategies that we'll cover for solving quadratics. So far we've seen graphing, where you look for the solution where it crosses the axis, algebra, which is where you square root and don't forget your plus or minus, factoring, which is where you factor and set the factors equal to 0, completing the square, which I didn't show you because again nobody really uses that, but you could use that. And you know, main thing is just make sure you remember these are all different ways to do it. When working out the quadratic formula, follow the process and practice for repetition. If you do the exact same thing every time, you will get it correct most of the time. Let's just go ahead and get to it and show you what I mean. What I do first is I like to write down my a, b, and c so I don't need to look back at the equation for it. So a is 1, b is negative 9, c is negative 22. I then like to write the formula, negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. These two are preparation steps. This is the formula. This is where I'm getting the numbers for the formula. So now I substitute again using parentheses. So negative parentheses, negative 9 plus or minus square root of negative 9 squared minus 4 parentheses 1 parentheses negative 22 all over 2 parentheses 1. All I did was use the formula and the numbers that I pulled out safely. But what I do is work it out in thirds. In other words, simplify the three parts. Easiest parts to do are the negative 9, which makes 9, and the 2 times 1, which is 2. All I have to do now is type this bottom part in exactly. Do not type the square root. Type in the numbers. So negative 9 squared minus 4 parentheses 1 parentheses negative 22 equals 169. So now what I will do is split it and solve. So once I get that, all I'm going to do is type this in two different ways. I'm going to type 9 plus square root 169 equals divided by 2, which is 11. And I'm going to type 9 minus square root 169 divided by 2 equals, and I get negative 2 as my answer. Now here's what's funny. If I were to factor that, numbers that multiply to be 22 and add or subtract to be 9 is 2 and 11. It would be a negative 11 and a positive 2. There's nothing attached to x, which means that I would put x plus 2 and x minus 11 equals 0. Now this has nothing to do with quadratic formula. I'm just showing you that it actually works. That means if you remember, I put x plus 2 equals 0 and x minus 11 equals 0, which means that here, if I subtract, x is negative 2, there's that answer. And if I add, x equals 11, there's that answer. The quadratic formula solves everything. Factoring solves some things. Algebra solves some things in terms of quadratics. Quadratic formula will solve every single thing. The difference is it takes a lot of writing, it takes a lot of discipline to get here, which is why people have an issue doing it. But the process is pretty easy. Again, write the ABC, write the formula, substitute carefully using parentheses, simplify it 3 parts. So simplify your negative number here, simplify the 2a, and then type the numbers into your calculator here, and then do the process that we learned to do, which is to hit equals before we hit divided by, and you should be okay. Again, solve using the quadratic formula. Here I'm going to say a is -3, b is 10, c is 5. I write the formula because it never hurts to write it. That's how you memorize things. And then I substitute carefully. Negative parentheses 10 plus or minus square root of 10 squared minus 4, -3, 5, all over 2 times -3. Simplify your 3 parts. The 2 easiest parts are the top and bottom. So -10 and -6. I just need to know what this number is. And the way I get that number is by typing it in. So parentheses 10 squared minus 4, -3, 5, which is 160. From there, I do what I've been trained to do. -10 plus square root 160 equals divided by -6. Convert if necessary. -0.44. Go the other way. -10 minus, because it should be plus or minus, right? Minus root 160 equals divided by -6 equals, convert if necessary, and we get 3.77. That's it. I know those numbers look ugly, but that's part of the process. There's really nothing I can do about how ugly the numbers are. But again, whenever the numbers are like this, that's why the quadratic formula helps, because this would be almost, I don't think there are numbers that multiply to be -15 and subtract to be 10. They don't exist, so you couldn't even factor it. Looking at the last one again, a equals b equals c equals, a is 6, b -11, c is 5. From there, write your formula. From there, substitute negative parentheses b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, and all I'm doing is plugging in from the list, which is why I list them, so I don't have to go back to here and read it the wrong way. So from there I simplify. That would be a +11, that would be a +12. Let's see what's underneath by typing that in. So parentheses -11 squared minus 4, 6, 5 is 1. So from there, we end up with, let's just type it in, 11 plus square root of 1 equals, divided by 12 equals, which is 1. 11 minus square root of 1 equals, divided by 12 equals 0.83. Those are your 2 answers. So again, adjust your work for the answers that are there, but I think the majority of what you're doing has to do with showing this work here. So if you are using like a photo math app, you're still gonna have to learn how to do this, because if you don't know how to do this for yourself, you'll get 1 out of the 3 right on the quiz, or actually on the test, but you won't get all 3. And actually you'll miss more for not knowing how to do this stuff. So make sure you practice that, make sure you take it seriously, and other than that, again, your test opens up Thursday and closes on Tuesday, but definitely make sure you have it done by Tuesday of next week, because even though there's a holiday, I'm still expecting to move on. So careful, ask questions, send me pictures, good stuff like that. Talk to you later. Good luck.